Okay, so my purpose here is to make a video about ETCAN, the progress, and um, the future. So I made a little presentation, so I'll take you through that slideshow, and then I'll show you what I got so far. So let's see. Um, Switch this thing. Okay, I know it shows a little weird, but I don't know how to fix it, so let's just keep going forward. Is my sound working? Hello? Yes. Okay. So, present. Okay. So, ETCAN. Um, well, first of all, let's see what. All right, hold on. First thing I want to show is ETCAN is WeCan. So ETCAN is a project that's really about WeCan. It's using WeCan. WeCan is how I like to say it, which is an open source Trello-like Kanban. Here's their main page, and you can see some screenshots of how it could work. It's really flexible, and yeah, we want to they work with WeCan. They want to work with us to make ETHCAN, which is WeCan with some Ethereum backend added to it. So it's an open source project. Here you can see it has a ton of stars. Really well beloved piece of open source software here. And here is actually a server that Set7 set up for us. And you can see I have like my own little test board right here. So now I'll take us to the presentation. The presentation, which is here. Okay. So schedule, basically EdCon is a conference in Toronto on May 3rd, and it would be nice to have something before then. So as a good April 26th to have a proof of concept by would, I think, be a good time to put us in line for being able to present something at EdCon, even if it's just amongst our friends. Architecture. So basically, it's you have this WECN server. It has a variety of backends, and you have the WECN client, which I was just showing you, the board, and it connects to the blockchain. And so the idea is to basically have this three component architecture. The server is kind of like used as this cache really for the WECN, which a lot of the stuff happens on the client, which is where the signatures need to happen for Web3 calls to the blockchain. So it's really here on this client that you would be interacting with the contracts, signing them on this client. So this client could be hosted or in your browser using MetaMask or in using Status app on your phone. So that's the final goal system, and in here I'm trying to suggest that we maybe take an approach before getting there. So what are the bottlenecks are the two pieces of work that we really have in front of us are the WECN client UI. Right now the UI works great, but it doesn't have we need to add something to it to allow it to make a Web3 calls. It needs to have like pop-ups or some sort of interruption to the experience so that when you're doing something, you can fund a card or move a card. So that's one thing that needs to happen before we can really kind of present. And the other thing is the blockchain smart contracts themselves. We're not exactly sure what they're going to look like yet. And from what I've learned in my experience so far in the blockchain world is that development time can be a little bit slow due to deployments, and that causes demos to go slow. And so, what can we do about that? I'm not really sure, but one idea is that we could decouple the bottlenecks and we could kind of make two apps in parallel, a front-end app and a back-end app, using temporary backends to sort of like fill in for each other. So for the front end, we can start working on upgrading the UI, or I shouldn't say upgrading, but changing the UI to allow for pop-ups or whatever it's going to take to make these client signatures happen to the blockchain. We can work on that experience before we even have the smart contracts up, before we even deploy to the blockchain. We can work on what we want it to look like using something maybe more user-friendly than the blockchain. For the blockchain side, we can use authorized client instead of doing client signatures, an authorized client to talk to the smart contracts as we're developing them, as opposed to worrying about the UI at first. We can just work on focusing on those contracts, making sure they do what we want to do. And then, of course, they inform each other. So here is the front-end issues. And we don't have to go over this. And here are the back-end issues that I hope that this will address. And that's it. I'm not really sure it's going to work, but I'll show you what I have thus far. So right now, if you've already seen, I created a backend already. I created a Firebase cache and I created this web app that talks to it. So if I create a card, it'll update here with creating a card. I can claim a card, and then it says this user claimed card, go to school. And this is just a list of all the data that's kind of changing. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look closely, you can see some things changing on here. And I have it set up just to change things like randomly. I don't know if I can make you see it, but if I say, oh, this V is too small. I like clicking fun card a lot because it randomly adds money to these guys. And then I can delete them. And all of these are calls to this backend database on Firebase. And this is the database right here. So cool. So I did that last week, and this week what I did was connect this Weka board to that same backend to kind of illustrate how I'd like development to go forward. So let's see here. Cool. Here's me. Here's my Weka board. Why is it gray like that? Did I do something wrong? Let's create a board. Great. Okay, cool. So this is my Weka board. Cool. I'm gonna add a card. Present progress. Cool. All right, so I just added this card. Nothing happened. I'm going to drag this card over to deployed. Boom. A new card was just added to this database over here in Google, and this other web app was completely updated by itself because it's connected through WebSockets to the database. Let's see. And if I drag it over to claimed, you can see that something changed in the data. Oh, right here it says claimed by Oz. And then I can, and right now it has an account balance of 99. And if I drag it over to, oh, it's hard to show everything. Oh, just dragged it over to approved. The account balance went down to 0. So this is kind of an example of what I was showing on the slideshow in action. You know, trying to like separate these concerns for right now. This is just working on the web, the front end part. But it's my hope that by using this, we'll be able to kind of get the requirements a little faster. Okay. Cool. I hope that was informative and not at all rambling. Thanks for watching.